definitely something to consider for the future. Because I definitely want to keep open source around no matter what path I'm taking in my career from now forward. Because I really like that particular idea that you brought up, Phil, which is just being able to collaborate with people no matter where the world you're in. And I think it also kind of falls into the umbrella of it doesn't really matter what age you are, what position you have at your company. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's more like, did you uh, make a meaningful contribution to this thing? It's going to go in regardless if it's good, you know?
No, and I mean, and think about it this way as well, just from a career advice standpoint. I mean, if you're interested in AI and transformers, PyTorch is an interesting entire tool chain, right? To go engage in. If you like things like containers and that whole orchestration of cloud native and microservices as a platform and as an architecture, plenty of things to do in that environment. And when you become a maintainer, when you become a contributor in a project like that, or a maintainer, and you gain that level of status, it's something that stays with the individual. And that's one of the most empowering things about open source. I'll pull it back to the Unix example and the Linux example again. In before Linux existed, you either worked at IBM on Unix. If you were an operating system guy, you either worked at IBM on their version of Unix called AIX. HP had HPUX. Sun had Solaris. That's pretty much who you worked for. And you could have been the top engineer in that operating system at IBM. But if you went over to HP, it's a different set of code, right? So you're starting at the bottom. You don't know why they made the decisions they made. It's an entirely different architecture. The code doesn't run the same way as your old one. So you're starting at the bottom. When you work at IBM on Linux and you go to HP working on Linux, it's the same code base. If you're a contributor or a maintainer of the x64 code branch, you don't lose that when you change companies. So that reputation, that value to your company, it stays with you when you move, and it makes developers much more mobile. It's a value that this whole architecture, the way things work in the open source ecosystem, and it doesn't matter if you're talking, like I said, WebAssembly, PyTorch, name any interesting project, up and coming project. If you're significant in that community, you have a lot of value to your company, and that value stays with you no matter where you go.